Ever stare at a globe and think, yeah, continents, oceans?
Yeah.
But what's the real story down there? Like beyond the boring science textbook answer.
You mean the stuff that gets the imagination buzzing? The kind of thing that makes you wonder if we're just scratching the surface, literally.
Exactly. Today, we're plunging into a theory that's way more Indiana Jones than Intro to Geology.
Yeah.
The idea of a hollow Earth.
It definitely sounds like something ripped straight from a sci-fi flick, doesn't it? Secret civilizations, hidden worlds.
Yeah.
You almost expect dinosaurs to pop out.
Totally. But what's kind of wild is that this isn't some, flash-in-the-pan internet craze. People have been seriously contemplating this for centuries. We're talking a long history of dedicated believers.
Yeah, it really taps into that fundamental human curiosity about what we don't know, especially what's right beneath our feet. And over time, well, that blank space has been filled with some truly fascinating ideas.
And we're going to dig into those today. Think subterranean kingdoms, maybe they have better Wi-Fi down there. Whispers of an inner sun talk about a power source.
Right.
And those legendary hidden entrances supposedly at the poles and tucked away in deep, dark caves. Some theories even throw in UFOs and long-lost super civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria for good measure.
So our mission today is to explore this intriguing territory. We'll look at where this idea came from, some of its more, well, out there twists and turns, and of course what the scientific community makes of it all.
Okay.
We want to give you a sort of well-rounded picture while keeping our critical thinking caps firmly on,
Okay, let's rewind a bit. This notion of something significant existing inside the Earth, it didn't just materialize with comic books, right?
Not at all, no. This concept has roots stretching way back into ancient myths and folklore across countless cultures. Think about the Greek myths of Hades' underworld.
Oh, yeah.
The chilling Norse realm of Svartalfheim, even the traditional Christian concept of hell. These were often visualized as places deep beneath the surface.
So these weren't necessarily literal blueprints for a hollow Earth, but maybe more like symbolic underneaths.
Yeah, precisely, yeah. They represented origins, the afterlife, the great unknown. But within those ancient stories, you often find specific descriptions hinting at an inner Earth. Some Kabbalistic texts contain such ideas, and Tibetan Buddhist beliefs mention Shambhala, a mystical city said to be located inside the Earth.
Shambhala, right? The legendary paradise hidden away. So the dream of a secret, maybe even perfect world beneath us, has been around for ages. Why do you think that is? Is it just human nature to, imagine what we can't see?
I think you're onto something there. There's a powerful archetype in the journey to the underworld, a descent and potential return, often symbolizing transformation or, access to hidden knowledge.
Right.
Plus, the Earth itself is a source of life and mystery. It's kind of natural to wonder what lies within its depths.
That makes sense. And it's not just Western cultures, right?
Yeah.
I remember reading about similar ideas elsewhere.
Absolutely. Ancient Greeks had specific caves they believed were gateways to the underworld. Thracian and Dacian legends speak of vast caverns inhabited by ancient deities. Hindu mythology describes Patala, a subterranean realm. Even indigenous cultures across the globe have tales of their ancestors emerging from beneath the earth through cave systems. The cave as a portal. It's a truly universal theme.
Caves as entry points, that's a powerful and recurring image. Almost makes you look at that dark hole in the ground a little differently, doesn't it?
It really does. From Celtic myths describing an Ireland's gate to hell to Native American stories of people emerging from the earth through specific caves, this connection between the surface and what lies beneath is just a constant thread in human storytelling.
Okay, so fast forward a few centuries. When does this more mythological idea start to take on, let's call it, proto-scientific spin?
That shift begins to occur in the 17th and 18th centuries. Athanasius Kircher, in his 1665 book, Mundus Subterraneus, speculated about an intricate network of underground cavities and maybe even a water channel connecting the Earth's poles. Not a fully hollow Earth, mind you, but the idea of significant internal spaces was definitely being floated.
So the concept of inner space was gaining some traction, even if it wasn't entirely empty space.
Gotcha. Exactly. But the real leap towards a true hollow Earth model comes with Edmund Halley. Yes, the same guy who figured out when his comet would be back.
Halley's comet guy. Okay.
That's the one. In 1692, he proposed a model based on some, let's just say his calculations about the moon's density were a tad off.
Okay, lay Halley's hollow hypothesis on me.
Yeah.
What did he actually come up with?
He theorized that the Earth might be a hollow shell, roughly 500 miles thick, containing two inner concentric shells and a solid innermost core.
Wow.
He even suggested these shells were separated by atmospheres and possessed their own magnetic poles, rotating at different speeds. Talk about a complicated clockwork Earth.
Whoa, that's intricate. What was his reasoning behind this multi-layered spinning Earth thing?
Well, he proposed this elaborate model to try and explain those perplexing inconsistencies in compass readings that were puzzling scientists at the time. Ah, the magnetic stuff again.
Right. He even imagined the atmosphere inside these shells as luminous and potentially inhabited, speculating that escaping gas from these inner worlds caused the aurora borealis, the northern lights.
Luminous inner atmosphere and residence. Now we're really getting into some imaginative territory. He's like a Russian nesting doll, but with potentially chatty inhabitants.
Exactly. Then, later in the 18th century, we have Leclerc-Melfort, who claimed that the ancestors of the Muskogee peoples emerged from caverns near the Red River. He even stated these caverns were vast enough to hold tens of thousands of families. That's a pretty big basement.
Tens of thousands.
Okay, so the idea of a habitable inner Earth was definitely gaining momentum. Now, I've heard whispers about a famous mathematician, Euler, and his central sun. Was he on board with the hollow Earth idea too?
That's a common misconception, actually. While it's often attributed to Leonhard Euler that he proposed a single-shell hollow Earth with a small central sun, that's not entirely accurate. He did engage in a thought experiment about dropping an object through a hypothetical hole drilled through the Earth's center, but that was a purely theoretical exercise exploring gravity,
Yeah.
not a proposal for a physical hollow Earth model.
Okay, so Euler wasn't necessarily a hollow Earth believer himself, just doing some cosmic mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, the 19th century seems to be a real boom time for this theory, right? Names like Symes keep popping up.
Absolutely. John Cleves Sims Jr. really emerged as the most prominent early advocate for the hollow Earth in the 19th century. In 1818, he put forward an even more detailed model, a hollow shell about 800 miles thick,
Okay.
with massive openings around 1,400 miles across at both the North and South Poles.
1,400 miles.
Huge, massive openings. These openings, he claimed, led to 4 inner concentric shells, each also open at the poles.
4 inner shells. That's
Oh.
like peeling back layers of an alien onion. And he seriously thought we could just sail right into these polar openings, like taking a shortcut to the Earth's core.
That was the grand vision. He even lobbied Congress for a polar expedition to find this North Pole entrance.
No way!
Yeah. Thanks to his dedicated followers, like James McBride and J.N. Reynolds, his ideas gained considerable public attention. Reynolds himself went on to lecture extensively on the hollow Earth and passionately advocated for an exploratory mission. Imagine the travel brochures for that trip.
Wow. There's even a monument dedicated to Sims in Ohio, isn't there? That really highlights the level of conviction some people held.
It really does. And while Sims himself never actually penned a book on his theories, several authors published works based on his ideas, further spreading the hollow Earth gospel, so to speak.
And this wasn't just an American phenomenon, was it? I seem to recall reading about a Sir John Leslie in Britain also proposing a hollow Earth.
That's correct. In his 1829 Elements of Natural Philosophy, Sir John Leslie also presented a hollow Earth concept. And then you have figures like William Fairfield Warren, who, while not strictly a hollow Earth theorist, believed in an ancient advanced Arctic civilization called Hyperborea,
Hyperborea, right.
which indirectly influenced some early hollow Earth proponents.
Okay, so the 19th century really laid the foundation. What happens in the 20th century? Does the theory just fade away as science advances, or does it kind of morph into something new?
It definitely evolves and in some ways becomes even more deeply entwined with other, let's say, fringe beliefs. You see it appearing in early feminist utopian novels, such as N.E.U.U.A.,
Okay,
which actually used Symes' hollow Earth theory as a backdrop for its subterranean society. Talk about world building.
an interesting literary connection, using a fringe scientific idea to explore social structures.
Yeah. Exactly. And then you have individuals like William Reed, who in his 1906 book, Phantom of the Poles, supported a hollow Earth but simplified the model, doing away with the inner shells and the inner sun.
Ah.
Maybe he thought it was getting too crowded down there.
So streamlining the inner Earth design makes sense. Left to worry about bumping into.
Precisely. And then the spiritualist writer Lady Paget brought the hollow Earth hypothesis into her writings, suggesting that the people of Atlantis had relocated to subterranean cities beneath the desert,
Atlantis again.
and that an entrance to their realm would be discovered in the 21st century. So yeah, Atlantis with underground condos.
Atlantis in the Earth's basement. You really can't make this stuff up. It's like everyone had their own version of what was going on down there.
Indeed. Marshall Gardner in the early 1900s really doubled down on the inner sun idea and even went as far as patenting a working model of his hollow Earth.
Patented it. Seriously.
Yep. He even critiqued Symes's more complex model, showing that there were, different camps within the hollow Earth belief system.
A hollow Earth civil war. Who knew? And wasn't there a Russian novel around the same time, Plutonia, that depicted a hollow Earth teeming with prehistoric life?
Yes, by Vladimir Obruchev. It was a fictional exploration of a hollow Earth complete with an inner sun illuminating a world of dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures, all accessible through a polar opening.
Wow.
So popular fiction continued to fuel the imagination and add even more layers to the mythos.
Now, things start to get a bit weirder, right? With talk of hidden subterranean kingdoms like Agartha and alleged connections to UFOs.
That's where the theories really start to branch out into some truly fascinating and maybe stranger territory. Ferdinand Ossendowski, in his 1922 book Beasts, Men and Gods, claimed he had been told about Agartha,
Agartha, okay.
a vast subterranean kingdom known to Buddhists. This idea of a hidden, advanced civilization dwelling within the Earth becomes a recurring motif in many esoteric circles.
So a secret underground superpower, potentially with better technology than us surface dwellers. It sounds like a plot for a Cold War thriller.
Absolutely. And then the ancient astronaut theorists enter the picture, suggesting that these underground tunnels and civilizations might be connected to extraterrestrial visitors in the distant past.
Of course.
Maybe they use the Earth as a sort of cosmic layover,
Right, the aliens built it angle.
Yeah.
Never gets old.
Precisely. Figures like Peter Colossimos speculated that strange light seen emerging from the ground and reports of unusual objects entering tunnels were evidence of UFOs operating from within the Earth.
Well.
And then you have the whole bizarre saga of the Shaver mystery in Amazing Stories magazine. While presented as fiction, it claimed the existence of a vast network of prehistoric caves inhabited by malevolent beings called Derail, who tormented surface dwellers with telepathic voices and sinister technology.
The Darrow and their underground mind games.
Yeah.
That's a deep dive into pulp fiction bordering on the surreal. Wow.
It is, but it illustrates how the Hollow Earth concept could mutate and absorb other anxieties and beliefs about hidden forces influencing our world.
Right.
And then, in the 1960s, Raymond Bernard's book, The Hollow Earth, really solidified the idea of UFOs originating from inside our planet, even bizarrely citing the Ring Nebula as proof of hollow celestial bodies.
Okay, so we've journeyed through ancient myths, early scientific guesses, adventurous fiction, and now we're talking subterranean empires and inner Earth UFO bases. The Hollow Earth theory certainly has a wild and winding history.
It really does.
But now for the big question. What does mainstream science, with its fancy gadgets and data, say about all this?
Well, this is where the Hollow Earth theory encounters some rather significant, shall we say, reality checks. Let's start with the fundamental concept, the Earth's density. Think about it logically.
Right. If a huge chunk of the Earth was just empty space, wouldn't that make the whole planet weigh a lot less? Wouldn't that affect how strongly gravity pulls on us?
Precisely. Scientists have meticulously calculated the Earth's average density based on its size and the strength of the gravitational pull we experience on the surface.
Okay.
That average density turns out to be about 5.5 times the density of water, whereas the rocks we find on the Earth's surface are only about half that dense.
Ah, much denser inside then.
Exactly. For the Earth to have the gravitational pull that keeps our feet firmly planted, a substantial portion of its interior must be composed of much denser materials. Imagine trying to make a lead balloon float. It just doesn't work. A hollow Earth with a thin crust simply wouldn't have enough mass to generate the gravity we feel.
So the very fact that we're not all floating off into space is a pretty strong argument against a hollow Earth.
It's a very strong argument, yes. Early experiments studying how local masses affect gravity, like those conducted by Pierre Bouguer way back in the 18th century, started to raise serious doubts about the idea. And Henry Cavendish's groundbreaking measurement of Earth's density in the late 1700s provided even more compelling evidence against a significantly hollow planet.
And then there's the whole field of seismology, studying those vibrations that rumble through the Earth. How does that factor in?
This has given us arguably the most definitive picture of the Earth's internal structure, and it strongly contradicts the hollow Earth concept. The way seismic waves travel through and around the planet, their speeds, the way they bend and reflect.
And even which types of waves can and cannot pass through certain layers tells us an enormous amount about what lies beneath.
Like an ultrasound.
Exactly like an ultrasound of the Earth. The data we've collected over decades paints a very clear picture. A layered Earth with a solid mantle and crust, a liquid outer core, and a solid inner core. There's simply no large empty cavity in there we can see inside, and it's mostly solid.
So these seismic waves are like X-rays for the planet, and they show a solid or mostly solid interior. No big empty bits.
Precisely. The overwhelming evidence from seismology supports a model of the Earth with a solid rocky mantle and crust, a liquid nickel-iron outer core, and a solid nickel-iron inner core. No room for vast, hollow spaces.
What about the way planets form in the first place? Does that process lend any credibility to the idea of a hollow Earth?
Not really, no. Gravity is the primary driving force behind planetary formation. Massive amounts of dust and gas clump together due to gravitational attraction.
And the most energy-efficient and stable shape for a rotating object of that size is a solid or very nearly solid sphere. Having a large hollow space inside would be energetically unfavorable and incredibly unstable.
Okay.
It's like trying to form a hollow snowball by just gently rolling some snow. It's going to collapse into a solid mass.
So the fundamental forces of nature that create planets in the first place argue against them being hollow.
Exactly. And ordinary matter simply isn't strong enough to withstand the immense gravitational forces at play within a planet the size of Earth without collapsing inwards.
Right.
A hollow shell with the known thickness of Earth's crust simply couldn't support itself against that kind of pressure. It would just implode.
Okay, so the scientific evidence seems pretty stacked against a hollow Earth. But what about those supposed massive entrances at the North and South poles? Surely someone would have stumbled upon a hole the size of a continent by now, right?
Well, while it's true that polar exploration has historically been challenging, we now have extensive satellite imagery and vast amounts of scientific data collected from these regions.
Yeah, satellites see everything now.
Pretty much. And there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever of massive holes leading into the Earth at either pole. The notion that compasses mysteriously malfunction near these supposed openings, or that pilots have been inadvertently flying into them, as Raymond Bernard claimed, it simply doesn't hold up against modern navigation technology and detailed mapping.
Okay.
We have a pretty good view of the top and bottom of the planet, and yet there are no gaping holes.
And what about the deepest drilling projects we've ever undertaken? Like that super deep borehole in Russia. Did that offer any insights, even if it didn't go all the way to the center?
The Kola super deep borehole in Russia did reach an impressive depth of about 7.5 miles, which sounds like a lot.
Pretty deep.
It is a remarkable engineering feat, but it's still just a tiny scratch on the surface when you consider the Earth's radius is nearly 4,000 miles.
Oh, right. Perspective.
Exactly. So direct drilling hasn't definitively proven the absence of a hollow Earth through direct observation simply because we haven't drilled nearly deep enough. However, as we discussed, the seismic data provides a much more comprehensive and reliable picture.
Yeah.
A 7-mile deep hole tells us about the rocks at that specific location, but seismic waves give us a planet-wide X-ray, essentially.
Right. A single relatively shallow hole can't tell us about the structure of the entire planet.
Yeah.
Now, I vaguely recall reading something about a concave hollow Earth theory. What's the deal with that? It sounds like a reverse universe.
It is a mind-bending variation. Instead of us living on the outer surface of a hollow planet, the concave hollow Earth hypothesis, sometimes called skycentrism, proposes that we actually live on the interior surface of a hollow sphere.
Whoa.
With the entire universe, the stars, the planets contained within that sphere. Imagine the Earth as a giant enclosed ball, and we're all living on the inside looking in.
So the ground beneath our feet curves upwards and eventually meets the ground on the other side of the hollow sphere.
Yeah.
And the stars we see are just inside this giant Earth shell. That's a serious perspective shift.
It really is. Cyrus Teed, in the late 19th century, was a major proponent of this idea, which he called cellular cosmogony.
Okay.
He even founded a religious group, the Koreshan Unity, based on this concept. They even claimed to have conducted experiments that supposedly proved the concavity of the Earth's curvature.
Experiments. Huh. And this idea had some followers in some unexpected places, right?
Hmm.
I think I might have heard something about Nazi Germany.
There are anecdotal reports, yeah, although not definitively confirmed, that some individuals within Nazi Germany were intrigued by concave hollow Earth ideas.
Really?
The Dutch astronomer Gerard Kuiper even mentioned the possibility that they might have attempted to use infrared cameras pointed upwards to try and spy on the Allied forces, believing they were located on the opposite interior surface of the hollow Earth.
Trying to spy upwards, that's something else.
It's a rather outlandish notion, but it adds another bizarre layer to the whole story.
That's a truly wild tangent. So from a standard hollow Earth to a complete 180-degree concave version, this idea has certainly taken some fascinating and strange turns. But ultimately, it seems to remain firmly outside the realm of mainstream scientific acceptance.
That's putting it mildly, yeah.
Yeah.
Mainstream science considers the hollow Earth hypothesis, in all its variations, to be an outdated concept thoroughly refuted by multiple independent lines of evidence.
Okay.
It primarily exists now in folklore, science fiction, and various conspiracy theories, really.
And it's definitely had a long and colorful life in fiction, hasn't it?
Yeah.
From Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth,
A classic.
to Edgar Rice Burroughs' Pellucidar series with its inner sun and prehistoric beasts, right up to modern blockbusters like Godzilla vs. Kong. The Hollow Earth makes for some great storytelling.
Absolutely. Subterranean fiction is a well-established genre, and the Hollow Earth serves as a recurring and versatile backdrop. It allows for the exploration of hidden realms, lost civilizations, and all sorts of imaginative and fantastical scenarios that wouldn't be possible on the surface world as we know it.
Which makes you wonder why this idea continues to capture the imagination of so many people, even in the face of pretty compelling scientific evidence. What's the enduring appeal?
That's a great question. I think it taps into several fundamental human desires and curiosities. There's that inherent longing to explore the unknown, the romantic notion of hidden wonders and secrets still waiting to be discovered
Wait.
in a world that sometimes feels too mapped and explained. It also provides an outlet for imagining alternative realities, perhaps more utopian or technologically advanced societies existing in isolation beneath our feet. And for some, it might represent a form of skepticism towards established authority and scientific consensus. The idea of a grand secret being kept from us to be quite compelling, you know?
So, is the Hollow Earth just a captivating myth? A persistent bit of folklore that sparks our imagination? Or does its long and varied history suggest something deeper about how we perceive the world and our place in it? What do you think its enduring appeal truly is?